the budding optimism about expected reopening this summer is palpable and exhilarating. Before turning to the data that's changing for the better, though, we want to acknowledge that the pandemic is not yet over and the global number of new COVID cases is again on the rise. There is a race between the spread of COVID variants and the deployment of vaccinations, the pace of which is linked closely to the pace of vaccine production. And unfortunately, in many countries across Europe, the Americas, and South Asia, the variants are winning that race. We see this as delaying in economic recovery, especially in developing countries, but hopefully the suffering can be contained during that delay. Yet the macro deck also shows that most of the developed world will soon be able to move towards a more normal way of life. In many places, signs of reopening are becoming measurable. Some of the data sources we used to measure the severity of the decline in economic activity a year ago are now tracking a strong recovery trajectory. U.S. air travel declined precipitously in March of 2020. It started to recover in the summer only to fall back as the winter surge of COVID cases hit. Now, air travel has climbed back to the highest level since March of last year. The same trends are seen in mobility and restaurant reservations. This points to the pent-up demand ready to be unleashed as people feel safe traveling and eating out again. The recovery signals are also evident in a steepening yield curve in the US, UK, Canada, and other countries where interest rates are trending higher and inflation expectations are rising. While Zoom dinners and concerts have clearly been a distant second best to the real thing, the general functionality of Zoom meetings and avoiding commutes makes the outlook for office demand more uncertain. Sports is another window on our changing world. Professional and amateur sports are seeing reopenings around the world, and sports generate an estimated $500 to $800 billion in revenue each year, approximately equivalent to somewhere between the GDP of Sweden and the Netherlands. When the pandemic slammed into Europe and North America in March of last year, virtually all sports shut down. By summer, many leagues were back to limited operation, but often without fans and sometimes in contained bubbles that severely restricted movement of the players. Places with greater COVID control like New Zealand were able to play in front of full stadiums, but most team sports in those locations were limited to domestic competitions and some had highly restricted attendance. Major League Baseball in North America and Formula One racing around the world are useful trackers of this dip, reopening, and recovery. The Summer Olympics will proceed in Japan in 2021, 1 year later than originally scheduled, but in front of a much reduced audience, especially as foreign spectators will not be permitted to visit Japan. Many other international supporting events such as the Ryder Cup, the Tour de France, and the Euro 2020, now 2021, are also planning to proceed cautiously. Widespread international travel will have to wait until projects like Common Pass or Excelsior Pass, the first digital vaccine passports, are widely embraced by airlines and, more importantly, immigration and border control ministries.